Nobody knew how long she'd been lying there. The wind cut across the Mercer ranch like a sharpened knife, tossing dry grass against the fading sun. Dusk was swallowing the horizon, turning the hills jagged and black. Eli Mercer wiped his hands on his coat, pausing mid-step. He'd just finished the evening chores, horses fed, fences checked. Nothing seemed out of place. And then he heard it. A faint cry, panicked, almost swallowed by the wind. "I can't breathe." It was a woman's voice. Eli froze. His heart thumped like a drum in his chest. Not a soul lived near here, not for miles. And yet, there it was, a desperate whisper cutting through the emptiness. He moved toward the shed, slow, cautious. Every footfall cracked against the dry earth, announcing his approach. His hands hovered near his holster, but there was no gunfire in sight, no threat that could be measured yet, just the sound of fear, fragile and raw. The shed door sagged on its hinges. Inside, shapes lurked in shadow. Dust motes floated in the last streaks of sunlight, making the air shimmer. And then he saw her. Under a heavy, dust-covered cloth, curled like a frightened animal. Shivering, Eli's stomach twisted. He knelt, brushing at the edges. The cloth was thick, stifling. Something about the way she trembled made his chest tighten. Hey there," he said softly, voice rough with age and wear. "It's all right. I'm here." No answer, just quiet, except for the ragged, shallow breaths. Eli tugged at the cloth. His fingers caught on something hard beneath the folds, heart racing. Every instinct screamed caution. His mind wandered to the worst possibilities. Was she hurt, sick, or something else entirely? The wind whistled louder, and for a moment he thought the cry had stopped. Then a flicker at the doorway. A shadow, moving, watching. Eli froze, the cloth halfway lifted. His pulse hammered in his ears. Still be you, who, there or whatever, was out there, wasn't him. And in that moment, the night grew colder. The world beyond the shed seemed to hold its breath. Eli's hand trembled. He met the shadow with wide, wary eyes, and the air felt suddenly heavy with danger. Who else was there? Eli's hands shook as he yanked the cloth free. Beneath it, she lay crumpled and small, a young woman, bruised, battered, gasping for every breath like it cost her life itself. Her hair clung to her face in sweaty tangles. Cuts and dirt streaked her skin. And then, her eyes. Wide, dark, pleading, locking on his. "Please," she rasped. Eli didn't hesitate. He scooped her up, feeling how fragile she was, how every muscle screamed from exhaustion. The wind whipped against his coat as he ran toward the cabin. The door banged behind him, echoing like a warning. He slammed it shut, bolting the latch. Inside, the air smelled of wood smoke and old leather, familiar and safe. He laid her on the rough cot, kneeling beside her, hands steadying, though his heart pounded. He tore strips from an old shirt, cleaned her cuts as best he could. There wasn't much, just a little whiskey to dull the pain, some clean cloths. Every movement measured, tender but quick. Her breathing eased, just a fraction. And yet, her eyes never left his. Each glance whispered a story he couldn't yet hear. And then his gaze drifted. Strange markings in the dirt outside, deep gouges half hidden in the shadows, a scrap of torn cloth, stitched with a symbol unfamiliar, fluttering in the wind. His gut tightened. This wasn't random. Whoever or whatever was after her had left signs. He knew it. Eli sank back, rubbing his face. Memories clawed at him. Losses, faces gone, mistakes he couldn't undo. The weight of protecting someone new pressed down harder than any bullet ever could. Outside, the wind howled, carrying voices. Hoofbeats, faint, distant, but growing. The kind of sounds that twist your stomach and freeze your blood. He could call for help. The town lay miles away, roads long and empty, but he didn't. No one would arrive in time. Not for her. Not for the danger creeping closer. Eli clenched his jaw. His hands hovered over her. ready, protective, determined. And then a voice pierced the night. Her name. Clear, insistent, from the darkness outside. Eli's pulse thudded. Whoever it was, they weren't coming for a friendly visit. And just like that, the thin veil of safety shattered. Night had fallen hard, the sky pressed down, black and endless, stars hidden behind clouds. Eli moved quietly, boarding up windows, bolting doors. Every nail he hammered felt like a heartbeat in the dark. He knew it wasn't just the wind howling outside. Someone, or something, was out there, watching, waiting. She lay on the cot, pale, trembling. Every shallow breath a reminder of fragility. Eli sat beside her, hand on hers. "Talk to me," he said softly. "Tell me what happened." Her voice barely rose above a whisper. I saw them. They killed him. Important men. They can't let anyone know." Eli's jaw tightened. Powerful men. Secrets that could burn lives. He leaned closer, eyes scanning the shadows beyond the cabin. Footsteps. A branch snapping. Every sound made his pulse spike. "Why run to me?" he asked. I didn't know where else to go," she admitted, voice cracking. You're not like them." Eli studied her, trying to read the truth in her eyes. There were gaps in her story, pieces missing, like a puzzle with jagged edges. Every fragment raised more questions than it answered. But in the dark, her fear was real, and fear was dangerous. Outside, the night carried whispers, wrestling in the bushes, horses' hooves striking distant dirt roads, echoing, relentless. Eli moved to the door, listening, setting traps along the perimeter. A rifle, polished and ready, leaned against the wall, knives hidden in pockets. Every tool of survival, every trick of the trade recalled from a lifetime of living in lawless lands. The woman shivered. Eli pulled a blanket around her shoulders, murmuring reassurances. Flashbacks flickered through his mind. Faces of men he couldn't save. Choices that had weighed heavier than any gunshot ever could. Every memory sharpened his resolve. Protect her, no matter the cost. She coughed, weak and desperate. "They'll come." "I know," he said simply, "but you're not going alone." And then the moment froze. A shadow appeared at the window, too large to be a coyote, too deliberate to be the wind. The woman's eyes widened, recognition flashing across her face. A gasp escaped her lips, sharp, terrified. Eli's hand went to the rifle, heart pounding, senses alert. Outside, the darkness seemed to lean closer, as if tasting the fear inside. And in that instant, the fragile sanctuary of the cabin felt thinner than paper. The night shattered. The door splintered under a heavy kick. Wood cracked, flying into the cabin like shards of warning. Eli's heart slammed, adrenaline surged. "Get down," he shouted. The woman hit the floor, scrambling under the cot. Her scream was sharp, raw. The intruder moved with brutal precision, dark as the night outside. Eli met him in the doorway, fists in fury, the cabin shrinking around them. Every swing, every strike, echoing against wooden walls, reverberating like the thunder of a distant storm. A gun went off. Smoke curled, stung the eyes. Eli ducked, swung, and hit harder than he thought he could. Pain shot through his knuckles. The intruder staggered, then lunged. Chaos. Fear. Survival. She crawled toward the corner, clutching a chair like a shield. "Eli!" she screamed, but Eli couldn't spare her a glance. Not yet. Not while the threat pressed in, as real and heavy as the floorboards beneath them. And then he saw it. Tattoos. Marks. Symbols etched into the intruder's leather vest. Syndicate. Powerful men who ran the lands with iron fists. Men who killed without thought. Men tied to the woman's injuries, to the countless whispers of terror spreading through the valley. Eli's mind flashed back. Faces of his family, lost long ago. Choices he hadn't made soon enough. Anger and grief fueled his arms. He struck again. Each hit, each shot, carrying the weight of old sorrow and new fury. But the intruder was cunning. He slipped, twisted, ducked, vanished through a back panel Eli hadn't noticed. The cabin fell silent. Smoke hung thick. The woman shivered on the floor, clutching herself. Eli's chest heaved. Every muscle burned. He moved toward the wall where the intruder had left something. A symbol, etched deep, threatening. His stomach knotted. Her eyes followed his. "What? What does it mean?" she whispered. Eli shook his head, anger and dread pooling in his chest. "It means this is far from over." Outside, the wind carried the intruder's laugh, low and mocking. The night seemed darker now, heavier. Danger had slipped past the thin barrier of the cabin walls. The ranch that had felt like sanctuary now felt fragile. Eli clenched his fists. He glanced at her. She nodded, understanding without words. They would have to leave. Safety was gone. Justice and survival waited beyond these hills, in the wilderness of lawlessness and vengeance. And in that quiet, heavy pause, both knew the chase had just begun. Dawn broke slow, painting the valley in bruised shades of orange and gray. Eli and the woman moved like shadows, silent but deliberate. Every step counted, every rustle of brush, every whisper of wind could mean the syndicate was near. They had no choice. The cabin wasn't safe. Not anymore. Eli hoisted the woman onto his horse, first, steadying her trembling form. "Hold tight," he murmured. She nodded, eyes wide with both fear and trust. Trust that had been earned through blood, sweat, and nights spent hiding in the dark. The open terrain stretched before them, rolling hills, jagged rocks, dry grass that whipped at their faces. The wind carried distant sounds, hoofbeats echoing, rifles cracking in the distance. Their pursuers were relentless, trained men who killed without hesitation. And yet, Eli had grit. He had experience. Survival was stitched into his bones. He led the horse along hidden paths, under the cover of scattered boulders. "We stick to the shadows," he whispered. "Keep low. Keep quiet." The woman clutched the reins, heart hammering, every breath a mixture of terror and determination. Sand kicked up under their hooves, blinding at times. A twig snapped. Instinctively, Eli ducked behind a ridge. The woman followed. They crouched, hearts pounding. The sound of distant shouts faded. They'd stayed one step ahead, for now. Hours passed, each moment a battle of wits and courage. And yet, in the cracks of fear, small bonds formed. She shared fragments of herself, memories, fleeting smiles, a soft laugh at the absurdity of their situation. Eli responded with quiet reassurances, gestures, a rough hand resting lightly on hers. Humanity persisted even when brutality pressed close. Finally, the outskirts of town appeared, dusty rooftops rising like broken teeth against the horizon. A local, brave enough to heed rumors and whispers, had alerted the law. Horses galloped in the distance, sheriffs, deputies, justice finally moving to meet the chaos. Shots rang out again, but now the balance had shifted. Syndicate men fell back, confronted by uniformed law. Eli guided the woman through the final stretch, her legs trembling, her breaths ragged but alive. They paused atop a low hill. Town sprawled below, safety within reach. She exhaled. Tears streaked dust from her cheeks. "We made it," she whispered. Eli's eyes swept the horizon, haunted and steady. He knew the road ahead wasn't free of scars. Memories lingered, losses endured, shadows waiting in the corners of the mind. But in this moment, survival, resilience, and a sliver of hope burned brighter than any darkness behind them. The wind carried the last whispers of danger away. They had faced the night, battled the ruthless, and survived. And though their journey continued beyond these hills, for now, they could breathe. A new day dawned, jagged and golden, promising both freedom and the weight of what was endured.